One of the graces that I know that not only I received last week, but all the men that I was with, all my brother priests, I think I can safely say that we commonly received together was the gift of our retreat master. So a retreat master is someone who just guides a retreat. So it's the person who does all the thinking so that you don't have to on a retreat. He's the one who guides reflections, meditations, guides the prayer process throughout the week so that you can really and fully enter in. And our retreat master this past week was a priest of our diocese, a former chaplain right here at the University of Illinois, a good brother priest and mentor of mine, Father Luke Spanigal. I think he caught us all a little bit by surprise. Usually when you have a lot of men gathered together, and especially priests, there's usually a motivating theme, right? Like this powwow about how we can be better men, better priests, better shepherds, better pastors, all of these things so we can better feed the flock. But he caught us all off guard because on the first day he asked this question. He said, "Are you weak enough to be a priest?" And it wasn't a gushy session where we all complained about things, or that wasn't it. That's hardly ever something that's very attractive for people to do, and it's hardly ever fruitful. But what he did ask is he asked us to take an honest look at ourselves, and that always is fruitful. To take an honest look at ourselves, because when we look at ourselves honestly, we give ourselves permission to admit some weakness, to admit some brokenness in our life, it casts out fear. And that's what good leaders need. That's what everyone in this world needs. We need to be able to have an honest look at ourselves so that we don't live in fear of the things that we aren't willing to admit. Well, Father Luke got this theme, admittedly, from another brother priest, an archbishop in the Philippines, who gave a homily not too long ago during this COVID season to his priests on the day of their ordination. And he said this. He said, "Are you weak enough to become priests? Because you need to be weak in order to be priests. Sometimes our own strengths become obstacles for the grace of God to be shown in and through our lives. Are you weak enough that the power of Christ can truly shine through you?" Sometimes we have to just remember that it's not us who is saving the world. It's not us who has to do everything, right? We as Christians, we most of the time we need to get out of the way so that our Lord can work through us. He can do things through us, I bring these things up not just because we're talking about the priesthood. That's how it had an effect on my life, and that's why I'm sharing you the graces that happened in and through me. It gave me great permission to be honest with myself, and it kind of takes the air out of the spiritual life of trying to be something and be a Superman. Well, I know that speaking to many of you, and one of the things that we have to do as Christians is to admit our weakness, because it's precisely in the weakness that God called us in the first place, right? Not everybody here listening is going to be a priest or religious or going to be a great leader in our church, although that is a prayer. It is a prayer that we become strong by knowing our weakness. So many times I hear people say, "Well, prayer, I'm just not good at it. That's not my thing. I guess I'm just not going to achieve holiness, I'm not going to have that conversation with God." Oh, we have to admit that weakness, because when we admit it, there's no more obstacle. There's no more excuse. God called you despite that. He called you to be a Christian despite your weakness. Oh, that chastity thing is too hard. I'm not sure that I can do it. That sobriety thing. I mean, everybody parties. How can I remain sober? How can I do this? Look at the culture that I'm living in. Maybe it's precisely because of your weakness the Lord is calling you. Archbishop Villegas goes on and he says this: "You are called when you're weak. You are called when you're at your ugliest, when you're at your worst. You are called when you're at your lowest. So do not dare to boast, because you were called because of your weakness. Those weaknesses made you even more lovable before the Lord, because where sin abounds, where weakness abounds, grace abounds all the more." Have you ever considered that God called you to be a Christian? He called you to be a leader in our church. He called you to be an example, a witness to others, precisely because of your weakness. Maybe it's because you've overcome things in your life that makes you more believable, that allows you to enter in to the ugliness, the chaos of somebody else's life. I often consider that about myself. What are our weaknesses? Because when we tear down those weaknesses, we look at them, it casts out fear. It allows us to be honest with ourselves and to know where we're truly at, not hiding things. That's never going to be healthy. Those are going to remain obstacles in our life. But it's by eliminating those weaknesses in our lives that we have no more obstacles. When we admit them, we have no more obstacles, no more excuses. The only thing left to do is say, "Lord, I know you're calling me anyway, and I accept." Y'all, if we didn't admit our weaknesses, there would be no priesthood. We wouldn't have priests. We wouldn't have religious. We wouldn't have Christians who are able to stand up and to lead others, to disciple others, to mentor others, which we're asking all of you to do. to be good spiritual mothers, fathers, mentors, disciplers that can affect other people's lives. If we were sinless, if we didn't have weaknesses, we wouldn't even be credible. No, we're not supermen and superwomen. We're just poor sinners that have been called by the Lord despite those weaknesses, and sometimes because of them, so that we can enter in, so that we can be truly weak. It's when we're truly weak, as Paul says, is when we truly become strong in the Lord.